You want to talk about what?
So today I real quick want to talk about the nature of really determining who is your ideal customer and talking about really figuring out how you determine who gains the greatest value from you and what that even means. So first off, I'm curious, can you define for me in your definition how you define value given by a business?
Value is kind of strange. And it's a very tough subject. A lot of people have troubles with it. I even have troubles with it. So, like for instance, a week ago, the power supply for my laptop stopped working, and it's one of these nice USB power supplies. And the problem with it was that it. I know that I have to have a Lenovo power supply to work because I've tried other power supplies for powering my laptop. And so I started looking around and I said, well, if we're going to do this, let's just get a universal charger, right? Because the laptop can handle a universal charger. And I thought they were about $10, $20 or something. So I went to Walmart. They don't carry them anymore in the store. I looked online and yeah, I can get them from 23, $25, but I can have it in 2 to 3 days. And $20, $25, I'll pay that. I'm good with that. However, my laptop doesn't have 3 days of battery left now that I know that it's not charging and the charger isn't working. Uh, I need it today. And so I went out for today. The only people I could find that had it was Best Buy. Out here in Oregon, we have Fred Meyer, which is the big chain that is kind of the competitor, the Walmart, so to speak, of uh, of the area. But Walmart didn't have it. Our Fred Meyer didn't have it. The only people who had it was Best Buy, and Best Buy's was $60. So here, my $23 problem was urgent and needed to be fixed today, so I could put in 2 days of work. I can't just take 2 days off work, right? And now all of a sudden, my problem becomes worth $60 versus 25.
Well, and in a sense, you probably would have paid even more than that if it required that. I'm sure.
Yeah, probably.
So,
But I don't want to admit that.
I
Don't tell
mean,
Best Buy that.
missing a couple of days of work is worth a little bit more than $60.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I'm curious, with that story, I'm curious, how did you determine that Best Buy was the only option if you wanted it today?
Well, I looked at the other places. I physically went to Walmart and they didn't have it. So then I came back home and I started looking online and I found that Fred Meyer had it. They had it for $25. Fantastic. I was excited. I was ready to go. I was trying to see if it was in the store that I was at.
Yep.
And then there was this little fine print at the bottom that said, only available by mail or something like that. Like
Yep.
it will deliver it to you, but you can't pick it up in the store.
Yep.
And it's like, really, people, really. I mean, universal chargers. I thought everybody had them. It was a common thing. I've seen them multiple places. I bought you one from Walmart.
Yes, but that was many years ago.
Yeah, it was only a couple of years ago. Well, I was before the pandemic, so I guess it was in a different age, a different time. But uh, things have changed, and apparently that's not a pressing need. But it might be just that most of the laptops now I could have charged from my brick that I have.
Yes, most laptops are USB-C or Apple's Lightning.
Yeah. So because I have this one odd thing, I what can I say?
So, kind of on that basis, I'm curious, how did you come to the conclusion that Best Buy was the only one still?
Well, I thought of what are the other stores that I have traditionally used that carry that, because if Walmart doesn't carry it, that means that more than likely Target then. So I didn't check Target. Target
Okay.
may have had it. I mean, I may have messed up. Um, but I was betting that Target probably did not have it since Walmart didn't have it because they do carry a lot of the same things, and their electronics section is even skimpier than Walmart's.
Yep.
When you look at
No, yeah, it's
what
definitely a lot smaller.
what they have, so that took out those two. So who else was there? And the only other electronics place I know, or place that has carried stuff like that, is Best Buy. So if Best Buy didn't have it, it was going to be a really tough day.
Yeah. So real quick, just researching, you could have saved $15 and bought it at Target.
I could have bought it at Target for $15 less. Oh, okay, wonderful.
Just throwing it out there. So you did it. I want to talk about this because I think this is really important for every business owner to think about in their own life and for their business.
Yep.
So you went through the process of places that you associate with carrying electronics, and specifically carrying the electronics that you are interested in. Is that accurate?
Correct.
So you didn't do a Google search. You didn't do a Google Map search for it.
No.
You didn't do a Facebook dive on it.
No.
You just went based upon habit.
Yes, places that I have shopped and places that I have seen that thing in them.
I mean, I want to touch on that because I think one of the things that a lot of business owners tend to not pay attention to is there's certain things, especially again that lower price, where you don't tend to do as much research. You buy on habit.
Right.
You buy where you bought it before. You buy where you associate it with.
Well, that or where you normally shop. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's very interesting that you kind of had that experience, because I think a lot of business owners need to be aware that sometimes it's better to get people in and being aware of what you have, just so you're an option.
Yes. Well, that's why Walmart's supercenters were such a huge thing when they came out. I mean, everybody gets on them about crushing this, that, and the other, but the advantage is that you came in for groceries all the time, every week, and then you'd also see other things in the store, and so you knew what was there, and therefore you would buy whatever.
Yeah, and the groceries brought you in every week or every other week at least. Yep.
So you had that repetitiveness. And then Target added it to their stores, and they had the same struggle that Walmart had when they first started. And then they kind of got it figured out.
Okay.
To get that same thing of you come in for groceries, but you also get the chance to see the rest of the things in the store.
That's actually kind of funny because that's not how I think of Target.
Well, that's why
they've done a great job rebranding themselves, is all I can say then.
Well, what I'm saying
back in the day,
is their food section is smaller than Walmart's.
Yep.
And it's much more cherry picked, so to speak.
Well, I meant more the fact that when I think of Target, I think of two things personally.
Okay.
I think of home goods.
Okay.
And I think of clothing.
Correct.
I always think of that first, and then everything else they have there is like a secondary and electronics sometimes. Because like the dongle for my iPhone, I was looking at different places, and they were the cheapest / had it for if I wanted local. It was $10 there versus everyone else. It was like $20, $15, and like Walmart was like I had to wait to get it shipped in. So I was like, okay, $10. It's the official thing, or 15. It was 15. It was cheaper than the rest though. But I mean, I think of Target mainly, like I said, for clothing and the home decor kind of stuff. So that's interesting.
That has been there. That was their original.
Okay, so that has still been their original.
Well, that was their original business model. And then they added food to it, which is why the food looks different than Walmart. Where Walmart, it's a whole supermarket.
It was a supermarket first. Everything else
Here,
second.
we're adding cherry-picked food. So you can still get everything you get at Walmart as far as the general description of things. But what you don't get is you don't have a choice of three different
They don't quite have as much on the groceries. There's certain things they just don't carry.
Yeah.
Like the meats. They don't carry any meat. That's not... I think they might have a little frozen section of meats, but like that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But meat, you have one choice, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You can get hamburger, but there's one choice for hamburger. There's not,
Nah, I gotcha.
2 or 3 different choices.
So, I mean, the thing I'm kind of curious, right, is based upon your experience, right, how would you define value for that experience? Like, what would you say were the measurements that defined that $60 was worth it for the charging cable?
For me, it was more, I needed it today, and what could I live without? because I was down to 40% of battery capacity, which would give me enough power for one day.
Okay.
And then I was going to be taking the next day off, period. No ifs, buts, or ands about it. Unless I guess I could have used the Chromebook. I could have backed up and used my Chromebook and done what I needed to do. Since pretty much everything we're doing now
Yep.
is in the cloud,
Yep.
which is good. I mean, I like the cloud. I like the cloud for that reason. Um, but for me, it was just the comfort of knowing I don't have to worry if the delivery is going to come in 2 days.
Right.
Even if you could get it to me in 2 days.
So the anxiety of ensuring it would be on time.
Correct. Because how many times have you ordered something? They say it's going to be there in 2 days, and it's 3 days, it's 4 days.
Honestly, I've not
up.
experienced that in a long time.
Right. I haven't either.
And especially not if I'm buying from a higher end company.
Right. But I've had it happen randomly to me. And because it happens randomly, why would I take the chance
Gotcha.
with this thing that
This
I've
situation.
got to have?
So, I mean, I think kind of a couple of things that you're talking about that I just want to make sure I'm tracking correctly. So what I'm hearing from you is the value comes from the sense of urgency.
Yep.
B, the level of importance to your life, in the sense of like it's attached, it's needed, like you can't live without your laptop kind of mindset.
Correct.
And then so we got the emotional connection, we got the literal necessity of it, and then there's like the physical element of the stress that comes from not knowing when it will arrive package wise,
Correct.
and that mental physical stress,
Yes.
not wanting to go through that.
Correct.
And all that creates the value that it's that $25 cable and package, I guess I should say. A $25, $30 package is now worth $60.
Yes.
So how do you think would be the best way, in your experience then, for business owners to consider what values they're providing and who will gain the greatest value from them? Because like from that experience, I just want to share real quick. So from that experience, basically what you're saying is that Best Buy being the only competition in town that you knew of to offer it was crucial.
Yeah.
If you had known Target had it, you would have bought it from Target and saved yourself $15.
Yes.
And they would have lost
Yes.
business.
I would have.
So branding is what I'm hearing was really important for them. So people knowing and liking the brand.
Right. Well, that, and we just made 2 purchases at Best Buy.
This is true as
So
well.
I knew even though the store kind of looks empty, they still had the full variety of stuff that they had. So you can get one of whatever it is that you're.
This is
really
true.
for.
But I'm hearing like the branding's a big factor.
Yep.
So branding is huge.
Yep.
I'm hearing also the dynamics. So like people who like your brand, I guess is what I'm saying, is what business looks at. And then people who, for that particular situation, people who are interested in getting it done today or
Right.
getting it taken care of today. There's a sense of urgency.
Yes.
And then thirdly, I'm hearing people who want to be able to trust that it's going to work. It's going to be a one-time thing.
Right. Right.
Or it's going to show up when they
Right.
expect it to show up.
Right. So like if you're at a vacation destination, okay, film for your camera is worth a whole lot more than otherwise. A SD card for your camera is worth a whole lot more than it is at Walmart, where I can go any day
Right.
and pick up one.
So I mean, and there's convenience as well. That's a factor.
Yes. Yes, it's a huge factor, and it's something that I think gets overlooked, and it's also something that the internet has changed, because if you think about it, with the internet, if I'm buying something online, whether I buy it from you online or buy it from somebody else online, I'm still buying online. I'm
Right.
still dealing with you having to either ship it to me, or if it's something that I download, it's something that I download. And a lot of those factors now that were so important to me
Yep.
disappear, right? Because I can't physically get it here, right now,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Or if I can, the other guy next to me can do it, get it there just as fast as I can. So that whole dynamic disappears.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of businesses miss, is when they start looking at the internet, they don't realize that it also levels the playing field. Because regardless of who you are, with the possible exception of Amazon, although
Yeah.
Amazon's kind of backing off their We're going to deliver it
They
absolutely
still got
positively
some
tomorrow.
stuff. They still got same day delivery. They still got. I mean, they got
On a
quite a
lot of
bit.
items, but not as many, and some other things.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing here in Amazon right now. I mean, this is a quick sidebar. Biggest thing
Sidebar.
I've seen from Amazon right now is that their struggle right now is they actually are losing uh, sellers. Finally,
Yes. Yes.
they're finally at a point where I've actually been able to find more people with their own website that have what I'm interested in when it comes to certain things than I can on Amazon.
Yep.
And I think it just goes into that 30% margin cut just became so big that for a lot of these lower end or middle end kind of companies where they can't really afford a lot, they don't have a huge profit margin to begin with, they
Exactly.
can't lose 30%.
Exactly.
And
You don't.
it's that 30% they can spend on Facebook ads and get a greater return than the 30% they're giving
Yeah.
Amazon.
Well, and that's an interesting thing to talk about because what you're really saying is that Amazon at 30% has moved themselves from a seller of goods to an advertiser of goods. So if you want brand awareness, you can put yourself on Amazon and you pay 30%.
I mean, Walmart's the same way. I mean, at least the people I've been talking to lately, right? Like we've had this discussion a lot. Walmart's the same way. You don't go to Walmart because of the fact, or you don't sell in Walmart if you're most people. You don't sell in Walmart with the expectation of being there for forever. You sell in Walmart with the fact that's free publicity and advertising. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't reach a broader population than that. But the reality is the profit margins that Walmart drops you down to just aren't viable long term for a lot of businesses.
Right.
Especially not if you're paying your employees well, if you're a local company, like you
Yeah.
just your profit margins can't sustain as a general statement for the Walmart pricing model.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. So it's
But it's a
being.
great
But
advertisement.
what's interesting is it's being used that way. So what you have
Yeah.
to understand is that this is advertising. This is not making money. This
Yep.
is not having a business.
Yeah,
This is advertising.
yes.
And then you want to try to get them to a website or someplace else
Yes.
or have an email list that they become a part of to stay in touch and sell other things or follow-up items.
No, yeah, you need whatever method you're going to
Yeah.
use.
So if you're a one and done item, Amazon could be the death of your business because
I wouldn't
you
say
get
the
the
death.
advertisement, you get the brand recognition, but where are they going to go? They're going to have their friends go someplace else to buy the same item.
Not I'm not sure what
Potentially.
you mean by that.
Well, what I mean is if all of your profit goes to Amazon,
Yeah.
okay, then and you sell a product once and there's not a follow-up sale. The only follow-up sale there could be is that person bought it and really loves it and they tell their friends. And now you can get their friends to come someplace else where you can actually make your profit.
Yeah, but most likely they're going to buy through Amazon. I mean, if you're going to sell on Amazon in general, it needs to either be a short-term system or it needs to be you have the profit margins to justify it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just those are your two options.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing I think that people don't talk about, don't look at, don't think
Well, I
through.
don't think they think through them. Yes.
And really talk through that. And that's what having a real marketing company that you're working with is about, rather than just a digital marketer or a web designer or whatever, is really having those bigger conversations to really understand what is the real profitability of this and at what point do we come out ahead. Because if we don't come out ahead,
So I'm curious,
we're
real
running in
quick.
place.
I'm curious. Are you aware you have a tendency to hijack the conversation towards a specific goal that you're like thinking about versus
No, I
maintain
didn't.
topic?
No, I did not.
Because each time we do this, you have a tendency of doing that.
I'm sorry.
It's really interesting to me.
I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. It's just interesting to me because it's interesting that you
You need to spend more time talking. We need to sit down and talk through the subject first
I disagree.
before
No,
we
no,
do
no,
this,
no,
so
no.
that I can be more.
This is better. And for everyone who gets to watch this video and chooses to spend the time watching this video, here's why it's better. Because you do the exact same issues with every client you meet with every person you interact with at a networking event, et cetera, et cetera. So I actually think this is really good practice and like hopefully gaining some self-awareness and like, oh shoot, like I'm not actually paying attention to the conversation. If that makes sense. At least I hope it does that for you. I don't know if it does or not.
I'm just trying to speak about the things that kind of come to mind because you said
Yeah.
for this, you just talk about what comes to
No,
mind, and
absolutely.
I'm talking about what comes
I
to
just
mind.
the reason why I say it's interesting is that you'll have a tendency, in case you haven't noticed, of taking what comes to mind, and it's always geared around this like, this is why I do this, or this is why you need to hire us kind of perspective. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, okay. I got to work
But
on that.
your whole perspective is always geared towards, well, this is why you need to hire a marketing strategist. This is why you need to hire someone from DUC. This is why you need to have your process laid out and written out versus just discussing the conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's just interesting to me how every single time we have one of these conversations, it always turns into a sales script for you somehow.
Sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. I just think it's important, and I think it's a good self awareness, and I think for anyone watching, like, it's a great self awareness thing that they might be able to observe in themselves. Because I think when you do that, you inherently kind of push people away because you're
Right.
answering things that they don't care about or
Right.
they're not
Yep.
interested in, and you're trying to steer a conversation towards what is your sale versus what they care about, and
Gotcha.
therefore you burn that
That
relationship.
bridge. Yep.
Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
That's why I think it's so important to like bring up and talk about, because I think it's important for other people to like be aware, like, this might be something you're doing to screw over your own relationships. Are you trying to sell yourself, or are you legitimately just trying to understand the person? And if you're just trying to sell yourself, then by all means, like, what you're doing will work. But if you really want to build that relationship, you got to do it different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. So back on topic on value. How would you say that a business should figure out who their ideal customer is?
I would normally do it if you have customers. I would talk about those customers that you really have enjoyed working with. Those customers that were just like if I could just have one of these every day, I would just be on cloud 9. And that's really what you want versus the customers where it seems like every time you turn around there's some sort of money issue, there's some sort of thing that's not right, they're wanting to return something or whatever, and there's just this whole huge stream of problems. For instance, I had a person who does Airbnb. She's got several Airbnbs, and her big thing is if someone asks too many questions, you know that they're not the person to be there. And if they specifically ask a lot of questions about how clean is the place and those types of things, they're more than likely going to leave the place trashed. And it's just very interesting. The people that ask very few questions clean up after themselves, don't break things, don't hide
Yeah,
damage to the property. I mean, one time,
it's interesting.
for one client, for one time, somebody rented her place, and a picture was in the wrong place on the wall, and she couldn't figure out why was this picture in that place. Why did they move the picture to this place on the
Yep.
wall? Till she moved the picture and found out there was a hole in the wall. So, um, but the ideal client is really that client that comes in, gets what you do, and is just a joy to work with.
Okay.
For the things I think of. But for me, I'm thinking more of a service type business, okay? Where when you have a product type business, it's more the customer that just takes the product and sells it, and everybody's happy, which is a different kind of dynamic. So I think it varies based on based on the what you're selling.
I hear what you're saying, and it's interesting to me because I think what you're saying is similar to the college textbooks, and it's the one slight caveat where I think both are wrong, or both I think need improvement for success.
Okay.
So the way I think of it is, I think of it back to that value part. You want to understand who's going to gain the greatest value from what you're offering, and I think you should start with a brainstorming list, right? And if
And a brainstorming list, as in the people that you, in your own imagination,
so,
you can think of.
the groups of people that you're aware of that exist that will gain the greatest value from what you enjoy doing and or offering. So I'll give you a couple quick examples of what I mean by that. And I think that you can start if you want, right? For some people, I think for a lot of people, it's a difficulty. But if you want and you think you're a little bit better on the psychology side, you can start with the psychographic that will gain the greatest value, which to me is the ultimate goal. But a lot of people struggle starting with that. So I think it's easier to start with the groups. But you've got to be able to your point, I think you do need to know what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. So example that I think about is I remember our headshots that we got done 3 years ago now.
Yep.
2.5 years ago. I absolutely hated the process. The reason I hated the process is the photographer was relying on us to tell her how we wanted the shot done.
Correct.
And I hated that because I don't have a clue. I'm not an artistic person. I'm
I'm
not
not an artistic person.
right. And we went in there and we're like, this is kind of what we want. Like I don't like we didn't really have an idea, and I hate the fact that she took us on as a client looking back now, because honestly, we didn't have the best experience. Yeah, the photos came out great, but like we didn't have a great experience because she didn't have a vision for what she thought we should look like, and we didn't have a vision for what we wanted to look like.
Right.
And so what came out was very mediocre, in my opinion, results.
I agree. Yes.
And so to me, you've got to know what is it that you're good. So if she's someone who like she can take the picture, but you need to have the idea, that should be a qualifier.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes. That you have some examples of pictures that you
That
like.
you know what you want to look like. That's what it needs to be. Is you know what you want to look like. I know how to make that picture happen.
Yeah. And that would have been much better. And that would have set us up, I think, for a lot better success.
I think we just would have chosen someone else though.
Well,
which would have been better,
we
though.
would have done that, or we would have gone through some magazines and said, hey,
Yeah.
I want this kind of a magazine picture.
Absolutely. But I
For my
mean, it
headshot.
would have been one of those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Versus what happened is we had a mediocre experience. We paid the money. We appreciate her, but we're not going to go back to her. We're not going to really probably refer anyone to her outside of just the fact of like, yeah, she does headshots.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that like, oh, she did a great job, that exceptional raving fan dynamic.
Correct.
So to me,
Correct.
when you look at value and when you look at your business and your ideal customer, you got to look at who's the raving fan.
Correct.
Right. And I think
Right.
to determine that, you've got to know first off, I think what you enjoy doing or what your product does best.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For a product-based business, I think you need to look at like what is the thing that's really exceptional about it compared to its competitors.
Right.
And it could be the amount of protein, could be the amount of, the low calories, could be the whatever, right? The taste. Correct. There's all kinds of things it
Right.
could
There's
be.
all kinds of options.
But you need to know what it is that you offer that's exceptional. That's the first step.
And then what do you do with the people that say, well, but there's nothing exceptional about my product? Because I've had a few people like that. And I think maybe the right answer is just maybe you don't need to be in business. Maybe this is the wrong path for you in life.
Well, so I think
wonder
no, yeah.
Because some people have ideas and say, boy, this would be really cool. I'm all excited. And they charge off
So
before
I know
looking
where
at
you're
that.
coming from, and here's the thing: you don't have to be unique and innovative to have a successful company.
Okay.
But what you have to do is have a unique group you're targeting.
Okay.
If you can't do that, then you will fail. And I'll use Grove Cookies as my example.
All right.
Cookies are not unique.
No. Chocolate chip cookies aren't unique either.
M&M cookies aren't unique.
No.
I mean, even the flavors they have that are somewhat unique are not unique compared to crumble cookies.
Okay.
But there's a reason why he will end up, I truly believe, by the end of the year, making 6 figures a month
Okay.
in revenue. That
All
is.
right.
And that's because of the fact that he is going after a target market that no other cookie company is targeting. No other cookie company is targeting salespeople, SAS companies, et cetera, et cetera. That's a very unique group that he is targeting that has no one else going after them.
Okay, but explain this to me. All of those people shop at some kind of grocery store.
Sure. But those grocery stores don't deliver cookies to their clients. Those grocery stores don't make their clients feel like it's a special, unique experience. Those grocery stores don't make their clients want to come back to them. Those grocery stores don't have their clients posting on LinkedIn about the cookies they got from so-and-so. Now, if Crumble Cookie offered options like that, then Crumble Cookie could probably eat into their business. And that's the downside of non-innovative, unique businesses, is your competitor only needs to do the exact same branding or similar enough branding to start taking away market share from you. That's the caveat.
Okay.
The good news is if you do your branding right, if you do your relationships right, you maintain that relationship and you're going to guarantee your market size for at least the group that you've already built.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So, I mean, to me, that's why I say everything starts with you need to know what you're good at first, what you need from the other person, and then you need to figure out, now that you know what you're good at, what groups will gain the greatest value from that. And I think you've got to look at the 4 revenue approaches, right? You got to look at, groups that are in the end user B2C kind of approach,
Right.
B2B companies that are in that approach. As far as B2B end users, I should say, B2B as in like Groove Cookies, where they're using it to sell to someone else, right? So resellers. And then you got to look at like collaborators. You got to look at which of those groups can gain value from either the skills that you're offering or from the product you're offering and the benefits of that product. And then you create a brainstorm list. And I think the way to your point, the way to guarantee uniqueness is you determine which of those groups are underserved by the current market.
Okay. Well, what I'm just thinking is the people I've talked to, when you start making lists, the lists are very short. It's very hard for people to make lists. And a lot of times they miss where the real money is. And they find out too often by accident that, there's this other group over here.
So
over there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, to that point, there's three tricks on getting that solved.
Okay.
Okay.
What are the three
tricks that I think work, that I've seen worked even in our own company?
Okay.
So first trick is we do have our chat bots, and you do have ChatGPT.
Right.
If you type into our chat bots or ChatGPT, and then whatever the goal is that you're trying to figure out, whether it's businesses, end users, etc., what X, right, fill in the blank, will gain the greatest value from my business that offers, and then you say what your offerings are, it will give you a list.
Okay.
So that's one
and
easy
offerings
way.
In detail.
Yeah. I mean, as much detail as possible, and you want to make sure you're, again, like with photographers or like camera people, right, videographers, you really want to make sure you're talking about like, this is what I enjoy shooting as a part of that offering detail.
Yeah.
So once you have that figured out, the chatbot can spit you back a bunch of answers.
Okay.
To give you some ideas from its perspective.
Right.
And as we've used numerous times, it usually has a pretty decent list to get you started.
Right. And it has a few outliers, but it's pretty obvious that the outliers are outliers.
Again, this is a brainstorming list, not a final ideal customer target avatar creation. So I'm fine with the outliers because you need that science to just think broader.
Okay.
But so that's the number one way to get an initial list, in my opinion. Number 2 way, in my experience, is you talk to employees and friends. So people who you know well, and because you're not usually all part of the exact same groups. You have people you know outside of the realms.
Right.
And for that group, you go, hey, like, who do you think could gain value from this? And you might get some insights. Like for Groove Cookie, Grayson, talks about the fact that he didn't know who he wanted to go after with Groove Cookie. They were originally just going after an end consumer. But he talked to a buddy of his who was in sales, and his buddy was like, it'd be great if I could send this to a client. And that is how they went into the SAS sales business and the B2B market, was because he had a buddy of his who knew about the cookie company. They were talking and said, hey, we could use this.
So he stumbled on an idea for a potential group.
Yeah, exactly. So those are like your 2 biggest ways, in my opinion, and easiest ways for any business owner to do it.
So that sounds like networking has some value, even
if you're utilizing your network for that purpose. And that's my third group. So the third thing is you just go out and get to meet new people.
Right.
Now, and I think the important thing with meeting new people is it's not just networking, right? It's how do you meet new people from a breadth of different realms. So I mean, concerts, basketball games, football games, baseball games, kids recitals, county fairs, state fairs, rodeos, et cetera, et cetera. If you take your time to go out to those places and to meet people there and talk to people there,
okay,
right, and you build those relationships of these broader network groups,
right,
it will give you better insights into that dynamic of who else you might be able to serve.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the things I've seen is like there's so much knowledge I gain by going to like, the concert in the park and then going to the, the farmer's market and then going to this farmer's market and then going to this Tuesday night market. You really start to see and understand like different groups, what they buy, what they're interested in, what they care about, et cetera, et cetera. And you start to be able to see whether you have a place of business with that group or not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And going to things like even just like things like Comic-Con.
Yeah.
There are people I've met, numerous people I've met now who like Comic-Con like is their target market and like they make bank off of the people that go to Comic-Con. So them just being at Comic-Con making relationships with people has allowed them to grow and scale a business massively.
Okay.
So I mean that those are the three ways that I've seen to determine those groups.
Okay.
Unless you've seen something different, but those are the three most common ways I've seen.
That's what I've run into, and that's where the struggle is. Or you get somebody else who knows that market, and that, which is
Again,
a two-edged sword.
Networking or friends
Yeah,
or
yeah,
employees.
yeah. But if you have someone that knows a market, like this person has done a bunch of advertising in this
Sure.
type of market, the upside is they can say, here are all the different places that other people have done stuff.
Yep.
What I struggle with is they tend to not come up with unique places for you to go and try, or relationships to try, or things.
But I mean, I think it really goes into, are you going after the group that's going to gain value from what you're offering? Like
Correct.
that's what has to start with though.
That's what it has to start with. To me, that's the litmus test. That's how you test whether this is actually a good market out, because there's a lot of ideas that come your way. But is the litmus test should be what's the real value for these people?
Well, I'll give you an example real quick, okay?
Okay.
So let's use our chat bot real quick. So
Okay.
I'll give you a great example. Who will gain the greatest value from a in-person piano playing? So I typed into who will gain the greatest value from a in-person piano playing.
Well,
And I totally butchered that, but let's see what it gives back. In-person piano playing service could include individuals who want to learn to play the piano and improve their skills, parents who want their children to receive piano lessons, event organizers or venues looking to provide live piano music for special occasions, music schools or conservatories seeking skilled piano instructors, professional musicians, performers in need of accompaniment or collaboration. And then special events and occasions. Let's try this one. What groups will gain value from my piano playing? Let's see what it gives back. Because there's a few groups I can think of already.
From your that would gain benefit from your.
Well, like
piano
one of the
playing?
groups that I know from my experience is I don't know if it still is the case, but I know a lot of traditional Asian cultures, piano playing is a very common thing for big events or like super big important birthdays and stuff. It's very common to have someone playing the piano at those events. So like that's a demographic that I just know because of people I've known in the Asian community that I've been friends with.
Okay.
So I mean, again, this thing is, I mean, let's try this. What event organizations need a live piano player?
So, folks, just so you know, we got an answer that sounded like our first answer back. So we didn't ask something that was different enough to get a different answer.
All right. So weddings, corporate events, hotels and restaurants. I have heard of that upscale ones.
Yep.
Cultural and arts events. Ooh, art galleries. I could see that for certain art galleries.
Well, if you're doing a big art event,
Yeah.
it'd be nice to have live piano.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Is
Wow,
like for specific
People are
events,
walking around and looking at art.
private parties and celebration individuals hosting parties such as birthdays, anniversaries, holiday gatherings.
Now, there's your birthdays. There's your Asian birthdays.
Yep. So I mean,
Well, they're not Asian birthdays,
not
but
necessarily specifically
birthdays.
Asian, but birthdays. But so I mean, the point I'm trying to get at is that this doesn't give us a specific group as detailed as we'd want, but gives us a generalized group that we can then reach out to. So
Yeah.
if you wanted to learn more about the wedding community, you can reach out to, it's most likely going to be higher end wedding people. So then I would look and reach out to high end wedding event planners.
Right.
And I'd say, hey, is there a need for this in your organization? Right. Now, keep in mind, it will probably end up being wedding event planners in specific locations or things.
Right.
If you got a wedding event planner in the middle of Timbuktu nowhere, where everyone's just paying, $5,000-$6,000 for the entire wedding, I don't think they're going to add another $5,000 for you to play the piano there. So you've got to be, and that's kind of the secondary thing, is you got to understand per what you're charging and per the price, who has the disposable income to justify that price, or who has the disposable income and the mindset that that's going to be something that they save up for and create.
Right. That they consider valuable. Right.
And so that's kind of like the second step of it. But I mean, this gives you a good list of going, okay, these are people who may gain value from it. And you can take this list and figure out, okay, what are the qualifications that will make them ensure that they have the money and everything else to truly enjoy the value of this offering.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I mean, I think that's the first step to consider for value. The second step I think to consider in value is actually one I'm working on right now. I'm actually really excited about it.
You're on an adventure, right?
Well, so I've been going through Yale's game theory class.
Okay.
All right. And I sent this, I called you the other day and asked you about it, and I'm starting to realize it. Most business owners don't consider the payoff for the end user.
Correct.
What I mean by that is that most business owners spend their time worrying about, we need more users, we need more da-da.
Right.
But they don't spend their time figuring out what are the KPIs that causes someone's payout to be greater than their pay-in.
Right. Right.
And while I'm taking this class or going through this course, right? One of the things that's interesting to me that I'm seeing is like there is a way to be able to sit there and take and you got to guess, but you can look at KPIs and you can even just think about KPIs and determine variables that will make the payout greater or less, right? If you're taking someone's last $5,000, the emotional pain that comes with taking their last $5,000 is going to be very great.
Yes.
Compared to whatever the payout is.
Correct.
Regardless,
right.
Almost of the payout.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So you start playing around with things like that, and you put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? At what point does this make sense? Financially, emotionally, physically, right? Financially, emotionally, physically, and mentally. At what point does the payout, like what are the KPIs of all four of those categories where the payout is greater than whatever this amount of money is that they're paying you? And I think that's something that not a lot of people really think about. But I think if you just in strategy terms thought about that and took some time to really delve into what characteristics, what financial situations allow for that, you would start to realize a lot better to even more, again, qualify and narrow down who your target market truly is. Because I wanted to have this, conversation because I think so often, and I know you've seen it and you've heard it, everyone wants to say, oh, everyone's my customer, or everyone who's interested in this is my customer.
Right.
And the problem with those generalized broad terms is that you're not truly answering the question of who's your customer.
Well, they're generalized broad terms, but they also, for people, tend to be general categories where there's like a lot of people that could meet that. And their real customer isn't a lot of people. It is a narrow band inside of that group.
Well, I mean, it's that, but, that's very accurate. But I'm thinking, in the sense of you want to niche down in the sense of you want to build your product, your offering, your service, whatever it is, around the people who are getting the greatest value from what you're trying to create.
Yes. Yes.
And your target and your market size will be based upon who really is gaining the greatest value from what you give. Because if the payout for the end user is zero, it's unlikely you're going to get a repeat buy.
Correct.
It's incredibly unlikely you'll get a referral.
Correct.
Right? There's a slight chance of referral, but it's very unlikely.
Yep.
And there's, if the payout's a negative, right? If ultimately it's a negative payout in the person's mind, you're not going to get a referral. You're definitely not going to get a repeat buy, and you may even get bad mouth publicity on top of all of that.
Yep. Negative publicity on top of all that. Yep.
And if it's a positive payout, you have a high probability of a repeat buy, you have a decent to high probability of a referral,
Yes.
all out of that. But again, I go back to our experience with a photographer. You need to know what are the KPIs to ensure that the payout is positive.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think that's the part that a lot of businesses fail at when it comes to describing their target audience or their ideal customer or their target avatar, whatever you want to call it, is that they're too worrying about, well, people who want this or people who care about this versus really describing what are the qualifications that make someone have a positive payout ultimately.
Correct. Correct. And that's why we have been recommending to folks to look at consultative sales rather than just trying to convince somebody to buy something, trying to figure out whether what they want really matches up, whether they have all the things that we need in order to do business to where it's going to be a positive experience for them.
Yeah. Qualifying a customer for a positive experience, I think, is the greatest thing that you can do as a business to ensure repeat buys and like continual referrals.
Yeah. And that's something that's really changed because it used to be in the 70s and 80s when I was young, that was less important. It was just, hey, just find another fish on the to hook, and there were plenty of fish. But now people are a lot more cautious.
Yep.
People are a lot less interested in buying, and they want a lot more proof that this is actually going to be valuable to them. And it's only getting worse.
Well, I think there's that. I think there's also the fact of just the competition's 10 times greater than it was when you were younger.
Right. Well,
you have the national and the international competition of
the only competition you had in my town was the businesses there and Sears that would bring stuff in from other places, and that was it. Otherwise, you had to go someplace else to get take a journey to the big city to get by.
Well, I'm thinking though, you also had like that was the day and age where door-to-door sales was like a very common practice, and it worked in a sense.
It was more common. Yes, it was more common in the 50s and very very early 60s, and then it kind of died out. But yes,
but I'm saying you could get away with door-to-door sales because there wasn't an alternative, and there wasn't another door-to-door person selling the exact same product as you, most likely knocking on that door behind you.
Correct.
Versus today with advertisements and social media and the way advertisements work with everything out there, there's a good chance that if you're running an ad for someone, you have a competitor running a different ad for it to them as well.
Yes.
It's not just your ad that's getting to them.
Right. Or if you run an ad, you're good for the first month, but next month you could be 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
And when you do things online, the problem is whether a person's here or on the other side of the world, it doesn't matter. They can still run an ad for you.
So there's just a lot more competition, I think, in that market. That's why I think being able to qualify and ensure you're getting positive experiences from everyone is so huge and beneficial to ultimately.
Yes. And that's a huge business shift that I think a lot of companies have missed. That is the key thing, key differentiator.
So to sum everything up, I just want to make sure we're on the same page and you would agree with me. So to sum everything up, I would say value is people who gain the greatest positive payout from what you offer. The best way to determine that list is consider using our chatbot or ChatGPT if you'd like. Consider asking employees or friends or family about what groups of people they think might gain the greatest value. And then thirdly would be just go out and explore and meet new groups of people to ask those questions and have those conversations with. Mm-hmm. And then once you've determined what groups, now you need to qualify them to ensure that you know the KPIs that make them a positive buy and a positive payout ultimately from what you're doing. Once you determine that, now you have a good basis for who your target avatar is. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Right. Anything else on value or kind of that subject of things that you want to touch on or you think is important to kind of get out there?
No, I think you've pretty much beaten it to death.
Okay. So real quick, because this is kind of our way to share our journey. So having had this conversation, who do you see as the people that gain the greatest value from what we do? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
I think it's those people with a true entrepreneur mindset. There's a lot of people who are called entrepreneurs, but there's very few people that are really entrepreneurs.
And how do you define that though?
It's that person that is starting a business maybe, but or starting the second or third business. But the idea is that the business is separate from themselves. That their business is something that they're looking to expand. Okay, so there's this growth aspect, but there's also this aspect that the business needs to be able to run its own self. And an entrepreneur says, "Hey, I got this great idea. I know I'm gonna, I want to bust it out. I want it to be as big as I can possibly make it."
Yep.
Versus somebody who's saying, "Well, I just really want a job. I just want to sell this thing. I want to do this thing, and as long as it makes enough money for me and pays my bills, I'm good." That's not our customer.
Right.
It's that person that's wanting to level up, or maybe they've had a business for a number of years and they've gotten kind of complacent, and they said, "Wait, I'm done. I want to really start scaling it, and now I'm looking for somebody to help me scale that and figure out what that looks
Okay.
like and what the marketing is for that." So, is there a bigger market than the market that I'm currently serving, or is the market actually someplace else? And if it is, how do we get there? How do we talk to those people? How do we?
So just to kind of demonstrate what the process really needs to look like. So what I'm hearing from you is ultimately it's people looking for marketing advice and support. That's really who will gain the greatest value from us.
That would be the ideal customer, the person who realizes that they need to do something with marketing, not sure what it is, and want someone to walk them through a process of figuring that out.
Yeah.
And then helping them, of course, execute on that.
So, I mean, I want to just clarify that because I think it's so important that people understand we want to look at groups of people, but the ultimate goal is we want to figure out that psychographic that we just said. Is it's people looking for support and a resource in expanding their marketing,
Yes.
right? Or creating their marketing. Those are the two options.
Yes.
And then when we look at what businesses fall under that, right?
Right.
Now we can do like another deep dive into what groups of businesses would fall under that, right? And you've got new startups, you've got, people that are going to business classes, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's a whole list of things that you can create. But I mean, that's kind of the process. And then it just keeps iterating itself down until you niche down to exactly, and understand this is who my target avatar is. This is what they look like. This is what they care about. This is what they're doing. This is the other communities and groups that they belong to. Right. Because that's how you're able to have that successful A, message, and B, understanding of who you're really, really supporting and helping.
Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, the people I've talked to and you can see the lights come on. It's fun at that point. It's not drudgery. I'm not fighting my way through marketing or having to put up with marketing because I have to. But it's actually something that it's a fun journey to be able to take.